When I was at my previous parish, Our Lady of the Lakes, I remember that right after a Sunday Mass, one day, when people were basically done greeting me, in the foyer after Mass, a lady came up to me and she asked me if I could please give her communion. And I asked her if, she just got there and she missed the Mass, if there was another Mass that, she wouldn't, she couldn't make Mass the rest of the day. And she said to me, oh, no, I didn't miss the Mass nor show up late. I was there for the entire Mass. And then I asked her the obvious question. Well, if you were there for the whole Mass, why didn't you receive communion during Mass? And she said to me, well, I was going to do it. But, as I waited, I was kneeling, and I closed my eyes, and I started praying for all these different people that Jesus would go into their lives and help them, touch them. And then when I opened my eyes, communion was done. Truth, I'm not making this up, okay? And listen, I think I did, but I'm not too certain if I gave her communion or not. But what I definitely remember doing was saying to her, well, listen, dear, from now on, open your eyes and make sure that you see the Lord where He is now and go to where He's inviting you to go. Focus on that more than where you want Him to go, so that you don't miss communion and the better things of life. And today as we hear these readings, we're hearing that same message, to open our eyes and embrace the virtue of wisdom, this great virtue that allows us to see God where He is at and to see reality as it truly is and not as we desire it to be. To see God where He truly is at and to see Him as He truly is and not as we would like Him to be or put Him where we would like Him to go. And this is so timely for all of us because we all slip here and there, some people more than others clearly, from time to time. Quite often for a variety of reasons, right? We lose sight of being wise, and we want to create God. We want to shape the reality of life. We don't want to allow it to be molded into His image and likeness, but we want Him and things to be molded into the image and likeness of our desires. And usually the results when we slip, we lose touch with what is real, the result is not good. I hear it constantly, and you're hearing it too, and you're probably thinking it if you've got your head screwed on right, that things aren't too good right now in the world, right? I mean, listen, there's always trouble in the world. There's no question about that. But let's just say that things are a little funkier than we may be used to, with the whole conflict in the Middle East, some of the anxiety that can create for us as we think about some of the potentially catastrophic consequences of that if that really goes awry. The war in Ukraine, the consequences that has, not just on the poor people that are there, but on people throughout Europe, even our own lives, our own economy. You see the horrific governments that are just absolutely, oppressing people throughout different continents. The police states that we have in some of our Latin American countries, and we just have to be blind or oblivious if you're not aware of the seeds, those cancerous seeds of Marxism. That's what it is. That seep their way, right, into everything that is popular culture. And that more and more are coming into our living rooms and into the minds, right, of so many of the people that we love. And that's just putting things in a, say, broader perspective. We look at all that and we say, what a disaster, what's happening? You look at what is sometimes happening in our own lives. Some of the conflicts that we are dealing with, some aren't clearly our doing. Some are. The ups and downs that we experience, the anxiety, the periods of being way down in the dumps, right? The restlessness. And we say, how did we get here? Why is all of this happening? Well, this happens because our eyes are quite often closed. And we're trying to, at best, right? We're trying to have God be where we want him to be. Sometimes we're not even thinking about God. We just want everything to be where we want it to be. And this failure to recognize who God is, how he is, where he's at, what he's inviting us to do now, right? All of that, when we lose sight of all that, the result is quite often distress and disillusionment, right? Disaster. You see, being wise and being able to discern, you say, well, no, I know what God wants me to do, and whatever. If you come to that conclusion in an instant or in 15 minutes, whatever you've concluded is wrong, automatically. Because discerning where God is at and what God wants us to do, as the parable shows us, requires vigilance, waiting, and reflection, not reaction. Quite often when we say, oh, I know what God wants me to do, and, well, that's a reaction to our impulses. It's not a reflection of where God may be at. As we go forth, right? As we go forth, we have to be aware of what is it that sometimes, so often, causes us to lose sight of that. And more times than not, it's a fixation with either the past or the future. Sometimes we get stuck in the past for two reasons, right? Sometimes there's trauma that's in our past. There ain't a single person going through this life that doesn't have, a few gunshot wounds that they're dragging around or trying to heal from. So what happens quite often, the PTSD that we carry in our bodies, in our souls, in our minds, quite often that PTSD keeps us stuck in what is not real. And we think, oh my God, this is going to reproduce itself here and there and there. Listen, things may be similar, but nothing is ever identical. You cannot reawaken the past exactly as it was. It's impossible. We live in a constantly changing dynamic. So what happens is, our fears paralyze us, and they keep us from going to where we are being invited to go, to embracing what we are being invited to embrace. Or sometimes we get stuck in the past because there may be some challenging realities at the present moment that we just don't want to deal with because we're too addicted to our comfort and to our, cushiness. And so we say, oh no, but, things have always been like this. We've always done this like this or like that. And, you hear that everywhere. Well, that was then. That's not real. It doesn't work like that anymore. The present is the present. The past does not exist. It existed and it has passed. Sometimes we're so fixated, sometimes because of fear, quite often because of fear. Quite often because of this desire to create everything in our own image and likeness. We become fixated with the future, and we become extremely rigid about the future. And, we're dreaming. We're dreaming because whatever that is, and clearly we all have to make plans in our lives. The problem is not, that we don't do that. The problem is that we're rigid with our plans, and we fail to be as flexible as life unfolds and needs call us to respond. And so what happens is we get flustered, we create conflicts because of our rigidity. The past and the future don't exist. The only thing that's real is the now. And the only thing that we really need to focus on is not so much where God was in the past, where God is going to be in the future. Where is God now? Sometimes we're good people. Sometimes we do this with the best of intentions, like that poor woman that had her eyes closed during communion. She had very noble intentions. She was praying for the well-being of all these good people that she cared about, but she was missing the Lord standing right smack in front of her saying, "Ven acá," right? Now, in a few minutes, right, towards the end of Mass, we're going to distribute communion. And if before you come up, you decide to close your eyes, my recommendation is don't keep them closed for too long, okay? Get up, recognize where the Lord is at, and embrace the invitation of the moment. Don't miss out on that. And then after Mass ends, all of us are gonna go out there to wherever we're going, back into the normal swing of our lives. And I recommend that all of us, myself included, remember to keep our eyes open and be vigilant and try to reflect and recognize where the Lord is presently at in our lives and what it is that He is calling us to do now, more so than where it is that we want Him to be, or more so than seeing things as we want them to be. And then we'll live all the more in this great gift of wisdom and a lot less in the weariness of woe. My dear friends, let us stand and profess the faith that unveils reality. I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all things visible and invisible.